Welcome everyone. This is Day Sanchez from TUI Minds, and this is JuVan Langford joining me from Australia. And I'm really excited to have JuVan with me. Thank you so much for being here. Before I let JuVan share a little bit about his work and what he does, I just wanted to give a brief introduction about what this series is and why we're here and what we are going to be talking about today. So this interview series is something that I'm creating for families of children and young adults who are ready to step into their power and share their gifts with the world and make a big impact in the world. And the purpose of the series is to share practices and resources to help these young leaders stay grounded and centered as they navigate this journey of following their inner calling and their purpose in life. And so I couldn't be more excited today to have JuVan with me because JuVan, you really are a living example of what it is to live a life of purpose. And so this is why I'm so excited to have you here today and to have you as the first guest on this interview series. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about what it is that you do and how is it that you're living your purpose right now?
Absolutely. I just want to first say thank you so much for even thinking about me, to have me on the platform, to even have this conversation. I really appreciate it. I always feel honored when people see value in my story and my experiences. So I'm here to give everything that I can to support you and also the audience that comes across this content. My story is not different than many other people, except for the fact that it's my story, right? I grew up in the East Coast of the United States of America to a teenage mother. And my mother, unfortunately, after losing my dad to leukemia, she turned to drugs and alcohol, and it resulted in me going through a series of what some might call misfortunes, mother on drugs, I went through foster care, experienced sexual abuse, got bullied profusely throughout school, had huge identity challenges, and really was spinning in a state of appraisal on what's next. And really one question following me the entirety of my life: who am I now that this has happened, or this has occurred, and it just kept going on and on and on. I just really needed something human to lean on. And I think there are so many young people in the world right now who don't have something human to lean on. And they're really on this self-inquiry, this journey of discovering, who am I? And luckily over time, I had these incredible, I call them temporary angels, who kind of came into my life and supported me, otherwise known as mentors, and really gave me the guidance and where it was like a counsel or a sounding board for me. And I really just started to lean into these people, and they just reminded me how blessed and fortunate I was, and reminded me to focus on the things that matter the most. And I began moving forward with the things and the people and the places that were moving forward. And I found myself on this journey of facing the thing that was my greatest challenge, which was identity and understanding who I was. And even deeper than that was a conversation around men and masculinity. I had spent most of my life being deeply hurt by men, losing my dad, experiencing sexual abuse, being bullied in school. I was afraid of men. And now I spend my life, my days in and days out, exploring these conversations and inviting men into rooms and into platforms so that they can heal themselves from the same trauma, the same shame, the same just deep and powerful conversations that were really running my life. So today I call attention to and I offer solutions to the imbalances and injustices of men and masculinity as a whole.
That's amazing. There's just so much in there to everything that you're sharing is so powerful. And one of the things that really caught my attention when I was learning about you was your work with young men. And I know you're the founder of MENtour, which is something that is really amazing to me. And I wanted to see if you can share a little bit about that, and how did you even come up with this idea, and what was the main thing that happened for you to create this?
I think our greatest challenges are the ones that we were born to break through and then go out into the world in some capacity and teach other people. And so like I said, I've spent most of my life being hurt by men and having a very challenging time connecting and trusting men, because the story that I create, as we all do when we go through a challenge, is these men are going to abuse me or abandon me. So there's no point in having a relationship with men. And I realized not early enough that unhealthy relationships with men also led to unhealthy relationships with women, ultimately led to unhealthy relationships with money, and it touched every area of my life. And I thought, if I don't face this, it's going to be the death of me. And I was paying so many prices for not showing up powerful or present in the rooms or relationships that I was in. I was paying prices financially because I wasn't making as much money as I knew was available to me. I was paying prices because I didn't have deep and meaningful friendships. And I was just really hurting, and I was suffering in silence. And my mission today is to end the silent suffering of men, because I truly believe in doing this work the last 7 or 8 years on myself, and then going into the trenches and holding spaces and leading events and experiences for men. I realized that a lot of men don't feel safe enough to share what's coming up for them. And it's creating dysfunctional men in the world. And because men are dysfunctional, they are at war within their minds and their hearts, and they're not showing up. They're just not showing up as fathers, as partners, as leaders in the world. And the evidence is everywhere. If you just look around for just a moment, look in politics, look in sports, look in music, look in education, our men are failing us. And if we don't turn around and we feed them, feed their souls, feed their minds and hearts, they're going to continue to fail the world. And I just felt like, man, somebody's got to have a conversation. And to be honest, this is not what I thought I would be doing. And still have days where I wake up and I've got to like think like, oh, wow, this is, I'm really in the trenches of this. I'm really working on amplifying my authority in this industry, because I realize that I believe the world's greatest challenges, from sex trafficking to homelessness to world hunger to gun violence, are all the responsibility of men. In the sense that we're the heads of many of these industries, in the sense that these industries are being, what's the word I want to use? These industries are being influenced by, these, unfortunately, men who are going through deep challenges and are doing the work, and everybody's paying a price consequently. And I just feel that if we created communities for these men, these powerful, high-performing, high-achieving men, to come together and to congregate and to communicate what's truly their inner battle, their inner war, that they can find peace with those pieces of themselves, And as we all know, it all stems from childhood, and we all have our stuff that we're holding on to, but we need a space to be able to have these types of conversations. And I just feel that it's my duty and responsibility to be a leader in this industry and to make a shift. And I feel that if I can start with my story and start with my experiences and my things that had held me back, and maybe it will be evidence that men can also find healing on their own journey.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. How was your journey? And I can tell that your emotional intelligence is off the charts. Your EQ is off the charts. And I work with families helping children develop their emotional intelligence. And I'm sure you have a pretty solid understanding of the importance of self-awareness and building that self-awareness. I was wondering if you can share maybe some practices or some things that you do or that you did to help you build that self-awareness as you were growing up.
So my belief today is that, this is kind of my philosophy in life, is that children are born oozing with wisdom and understanding and self-knowledge. And when they enter this thing called the world or society, it then gets incorporated into these systems and structures that remind them who they're not or what they should be. And they go through a journey of 18 years being put in, again, systems and structures, this thing called the family structure, this thing called the school system, this thing, the sports and music and extracurricular activities that keep and confine these kids' minds and hearts. And they find themselves living outside of their bodies, living outside of their minds, trying to uphold to these standards and structures. Then to only turn 18 years old, 17 years old, some even 15 or 16, and leave home and go out to the world. And they spend the rest of their lives trying to find their way home, back to themselves. And for me, what I felt and I sensed early on, I believe out to be myself an indigo child. I just had this knowing about myself, but I explored it deeply. Everyone doesn't have that. So what I would say is, for me, speaking objectively, is I feel that these young people just need to find themselves back in communion with their hearts. And I think it just comes back to coming to home base is what I call it. And so that's a journey of, you know, self-education. It's a journey of self-healing. And if you can educate and heal those pieces, you create room to generate more. And that's why they say mentors are important. That's why they say community is important. That's why they say family, whether it's your blood or not, are so important, because it's in that space, that safe space, where it's mirrored back to us who we truly are and who we're in the process of becoming again. And I have had such a blessed journey, and I just feel a huge sense of responsibility to create these spaces where others can really understand and fully comprehend how powerful they are, how beautiful they are. And specifically men. Men have really lost sight and touch with who they are. And they're finding them, they're trying or attempting to find themselves in love, find themselves in the workplace, find themselves in drugs and alcohol, and the list goes on. And ourselves don't lie anywhere but here. And we're afraid of this place because of the experiences that we've been through. And so it's just giving men and young men tools to be able to reframe how they see themselves in the world. And that has made all the difference for myself and the people I've been so fortunate to hold space for.
Wow, that's so powerful. I love how you bring everything back to the heart and bring it back home. It really is, the heart is the center. And I'm wondering how we can create more spaces as a society, not only for mentorship, but also for more heart opening practices. What are some heart opening practices that men and even young girls can practice at home, even to start opening their hearts again?
Yeah. Let me just, I'm going to knock on that home concept a little bit more, because it's coming up for me pretty strong right now. Is you think about our physical homes, right? The places that we reside in, our house, in our cars, in our office space. Those are the spaces we spend probably the most time as people, right? Working, sleeping, and commuting from point A to point B. And when your home, physical house, car, or office is dirty, and say you and I go into a baseball game, and I say, hey, let's go to the game. You say, great. Do you want to drive? And we automatically go to the other person's house or the other person's car, because our car may not be clean enough. And when our house is not clean, we don't like to have guests. And a lot of men, their homes are not clean. Their bodies, their temples are not clean. So they're embarrassed and they're resistant to letting people in to their hearts, into their minds. And that's why it's so important that we do the work and we start as young as possible. That's why the mentor works with young men and men, because they're still willing to talk about it. They're still willing to have the conversation. And it's takes time, but the greatest gift in the journey back to the heart is being seen and heard. And that only happens in relationship. And so, you know, you said we're not going to bring it up, but I'm writing a book right now. I'm just going to bring it up because it's real. And in this book, really the focus is teaching men and young men how to develop healthy relationships, starting with self. You know, this is the home base, and we got to take care of us. If I can't take care of me. I mean, I can't take care of you if I don't take care of me. And I think men have lost sight of that. We've got so caught up in hunting and gathering, so caught up in protecting and serving, that we've lost sight of each other. And so my feeling as a man is that there's no greater feeling than being affirmed and being witnessed by another man, which is why the mentor is focused on really leading, being a leading voice, a global voice for men's empowerment, and finding other leaders and other authorities that within that industry and figure out how we can explore together. So right now I'm behind the scenes. I'm doing tons of work with different organizations and different brands, and we're forging partnerships and really building a collective, a conscious collective of individuals and movements who are all gearing towards the same message, which is the healing of men, you know, teaching men how to make peace with their pieces. Because I don't believe that men are broken, but we feel that. That's what we feel. That's what's real for us. And until we feel safe, healing cannot begin. It just doesn't begin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very powerful. Um, so one of the questions that I had for you is regarding your own journey of connecting with your inner guidance and your purpose in life. And I know self-awareness plays an important role in it. Mentorship as well plays a really important role. What are other pieces in, besides also healing each of your pieces? What are other things that go into finding your purpose or figuring out what it is that you're here to do in this planet?
Yeah, I think for me, I would always say relationships. Like I feel like life is about relationships. There's such an emphasis and an underscore and a highlight on financial wealth. Go get money. Go start a business. Go provide for your family. Money, 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 money. But without the relational wealth, the financial wealth doesn't have a sense of gratification. It doesn't, it only satisfies, but so much. It's a passing feeling. We don't really want the money. We want the feeling behind the money. We want the connection behind the money. And so what I would say is building relational wealth. And for me, there's two relationships that I believe every man, and this is, I'm giving you some nuggets from the book. There are two relationships that I believe that every man should really be focused on. And one is with his inner child, and two is with the higher power. And for me, you know, your higher power could be the ocean, your higher power could be nature, your higher power could be God or Buddha or fill in the blank, Muhammad, whatever that is for you. But these are two relationships that every man must have because the inner child wants our attention. And we got to focus on feeding that child. The higher power wants our intention. And when we are intentional and we give attention to that child, we can show up. And for me, 98% of the challenges that men are facing is because they're just not showing up. They're not bringing all of themselves to the moment. They're not bringing all of themselves to the relationships, not bringing all of themselves to the mission and vision. And so everybody's paying a price. So I really think for me, how I see it, you know, from where I'm standing, is that if men can learn how to develop healthy relationships, they will have the resources to be able to create, generate, cultivate whatever it is that they desire.
I love that. I love that. I love what you just said about the higher power and the inner child, and those are two really important points. And the part about the inner child is something that I also wanted to ask you about. It sounds like in order to follow your purpose, you have to listen to that inner voice. And I also know that we also have the inner critic and that other voice that is mean and is not as healthy as the inner child. So I wanted to get your opinion on what you think is the inner critic. Do you think the inner critic is the same as a wounded inner child? Is that a relationship there? Or what do you think is a relationship?
It's such a good question. I've never been asked that question before. So I'm going to give myself a second and tell you what comes to mind. I don't believe in the inner critic being the having anything to do with the inner child. The inner child is our higher self in many ways. They're one and the same. When you really think about it, it's just reflecting back. It's a reflection. It's a mirroring. Is how I see it. However, the inner child does have company. It does have company, and I think it is the inner critic. And you know, for me personally, my inner critic, his name is Stuart. And Stuart has a black leather jacket, and he's got some tight, skinny Levi jeans and a kitten boot. And Stuart knows me better than I know myself. He knows my wounds. He knows my areas of insecurity. He knows where I play small and where I hide out. And when things do surface, he goes crazy. He gets excited. He lights up because he feels that he can control me. And for so long, I've tried to control Stuart. I've tried to control the critics. But what I've learned on this journey of personal development leadership is it's not about controlling the voice. It's about managing the voice and developing a relationship with that voice too, right? Mm-hmm. Know thy enemy. You know, there's so many quotes. It's come from a place of understanding. Lean not on your own understanding. These are all from the Bible, you know, biblical, and they're woven in wisdom in different ways throughout cultures and spiritual practices. And it's all the same thing that we're saying, but it's understanding the inner critic as much as we understand the inner child, because again, it goes back to relationships. So what I would say for those men who are challenged by that voice, because that voice has no hesitancy in taking the wheel of your life and, you know, giving you a run for your money, what I would say is it's super important to be able to have a relationship with both. And when you understand the critic, then you can develop a relationship and also be in conversation with it. So when those things do arise, that you can shift perception, you can have whatever you came for in life. But it's about finding a rhythm in those relationships. And it's
Yes.
not easy. I don't think it's easier to develop a relationship with the inner child and the critic. It's the same journey. It just looks different, you know? But if you fight it, anything you chase in life, you know, it'll exhaust you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when you say that you develop your relationship with your inner critic and also you develop your relationship with the higher power and the inner child, did you develop those two relationships simultaneously, or did you develop one first and then the other? What was your journey? How was your...
You know, I'm still developing both of them, even today, even as I travel the world and have experienced what some may call success and have been able to, you know, have a lot of fun doing this. I'm still developing. It's not like, oh, it's done, it happened, and now it's over, and I'm good, and my life is free. No, 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 no. My critic still talks. Stuart's got a lot to say still. But I think in the beginning, for many of us, it's the critic that has a louder voice, which is why we play so small, which is why we don't experience the fullness of love and of life, which is why we, you know, are spinning in a state of appraisal and we're questioning ourselves and we're lost and we're hurting and we're dysfunctional, is because the critic is holding the microphone, is holding the wheel of our life. And so I think so often we're introduced to the critic first based on our experience in society. And it's a long journey for many people to sit still and to listen in and to lean into the other voice that's there. It's usually a whisper, you know, it's a whisper, and you got to lean in. When someone's whispering to you, you got to lean in. And it's a choice. It's a series of choices. And I think that's, again, why mentors are so important, because they nudge you and they pull you and yank you. And I think we're pushed by our pain until we're pulled by, you know, the vision or our mission, you know, something greater. So it's different for everybody. There's no right or wrong here. But I think what I would say, something more concretely or tangible as far as developing a relationship with the inner critic, is spending time with yourself. I went on a journey, because a big part of mine is around intimacy and not being able to allow myself to be seen and loved and embraced in that, you know, in that arena. Why? I lost, you know, my dad early on, and my mother, you know, chose drugs. And it wasn't that she didn't love me, it was that had a stronghold on her. So I had trouble connecting with women. And every time I would have a opportunity to connect in relationship intimately, I would say, can I trust her? And it wasn't her that I was wanting to trust, it was my mom. And the steward would go, no, you can't trust her. And I would distance myself, and I would just create a divide, and I would create stories, and I would find myself on the outskirts of love, and secretly and silently craving that, but not having the tools. And as I got closer to this conversation with my inner child, and I listened and I gave it my attention, it said, we need love. We need to be seen. We need to be embraced. And I need you to break through this. And so I just developed a community around me, and I had conscious conversations, and I got uncomfortable, and I asked powerful questions. And that little whisper became a bolstering voice, and it's changed my life. It has completely changed my life. And I think that a big part of my mission, you know, when you experience that sense of freedom day, you want everybody to experience that. You want that to be available to, you want everybody to know that this is available. It's like going to a great hairdresser or a great movie or a restaurant. You get on the microphone and you say, go eat the food, go to the movie. It's the best film ever. And so I'm kind of a maniac when it comes to this work, because I know what's available on the other side of this conversation for men. And if we can feed our men, they will not fail our children. They will not fail our society. They will not fail the world. So I don't know if you can feel the energy coming through, but I get excited about this conversation because it's necessary.
Yeah.
You know, it's necessary.
It's absolutely necessary. And I love what you said about that freedom that you experience and wanting to share that with the world. And that's really the purpose of this interview series, because I want to share the magic that is available to children and young adults when they step into their power and that inner light and connecting with that inner light. And it's just beautiful to hear that other people are in that journey as well, and that they're doing amazing things to share that. So I thank you for your work and for everything that you're sharing right now. It's really, really powerful. One other thing that I wanted to ask you is regarding sustainability and balance, because I know that one thing is to connect with your purpose, and then another thing is to sustain that and to be able to do it in a way that is going to also take care of your own needs. I know, at least for myself, this is something that I'm struggling with, and this is my growing edge, if we can call it that way. I tend to do too much, and then I forget about my own needs and maybe even my relationships and other things that I put on the side to work on my purpose and the mission that I have and the duty that I have. So I wonder if you have any advice or any insight for children and young adults who might be connecting with their purpose. Especially right now, there are many children working toward climate action, and this can be very overwhelming. And so I want to see if you have any advice for these children, maybe when they encounter challenges, what's something that they can follow. Oh,
Oh, can you hear me now? Okay. I think the biggest challenge in the world, and I could speak from a men's standpoint, I'm somewhat of an expert being a man. From the man's perspective is language. And when you say, how do we find a balance? I think first is take that word, crumple it up, and throw it in the trash. Because balance is not what we want. Balance is not, if you spend your life focusing on balance, this is a huge lesson that I received about probably 6 or 7 years ago when I first launched my business. If you look up balance in the definition, it's to put something in a steady position so that it does not fall. Guess what? In life, we fall. In life, we fall. It's just a part of the journey. You know, it's just not something you should work towards. And if you think of balance, it's a flat line, it's a straight line, right? A seesaw, or just, you know, balance in life, balance in the scales, balance, you know, it's a straight line. And this straight line in the hospital setting, in the medical setting, means deadline, means flat line, means death. And if we go out trying to find a balance, then we lose. We have already lost the match. So what I would say is, instead of looking for the balance, I would look for a rhythm. I would replace that with rhythm, understanding that sometimes the beat is high, sometimes the beat is low, sometimes it ebbs, sometimes it flows. And it's just trusting that process. I have every example and every excuse that a human can possibly use on why I should not be successful, on why I should not work hard, on why I should even wake up and roll over and allow my feet to hit the ground in the morning. I have no father. I have a mother on drugs. I experienced abuse. Somebody violated me. I got bullied profusely in school and just crushed and annihilated my confidence. I didn't know who I was or where I was going. I mean, it doesn't get, you know, I don't know what else I could have possibly gone through that I could have contributed to the layers of my story, but I have fortunately been given a opportunity to see beyond my circumstances. And so any young child or young person listening to this, what I would say to them is this: find your people. Find people who see you not only for who you are, but who you're becoming. Find a mentor, find one person who you can go anywhere with in conversation, share your deepest truths, and create that safety. And tell them that I am looking for someone to guide me in life and I don't know what's next. And just trust yourself. Your body will tell you if this is the person or not. Your heart will beat fast, your hands may sweat, and may be super, you know, nerve-wracking, but it'll be worth it. And for me, it was about building trust. And a lot of young people don't have someone human to lean on. So I would say the first step is finding someone to lean on. The second thing I would say to a young person is read. Read, 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 read. I read, I don't know, 4 or 5 books a month, a book a week, really. I'm on Audible all the time, I'm filling my brain watching YouTube videos, listening to blogs and podcasts. It's brainwashing yourself and cleaning out all the dirt and the dust of society's ways of thinking that they've placed upon you that are not yours. So you got to clean and scrub the walls of your mind. And that happens through reading. And the third thing I would say is breathe. Just breathe through it all. Just breathe. Just breathe. In some moments where it feels like, in the moment, it feels like everything is just falling apart, where you don't know what the next step is. So you try to pick a new thing where you don't have the money or the resources or relationships. just stop and breathe and understand that you are here still. You're still here. There's still a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance. There's still a new moment that can be created, and it's available to us if we choose to breathe. And that's what comes to mind more immediately. And I hope that my messaging and my story has resonated. And I look forward to coming back and continuing this conversation with you today. I'm so thankful that you have created a platform for these types of conversations, because it's just not enough. And these messages need to reach people around the globe, young people, Black, white, Latino, straight, gay, Christian, Muslim, etc. I think we all need, we're all craving intimacy. We're craving intimacy, and it comes through conversation. I read a quote recently that said that all failures of ethics are failures of intimacy. And so that's something that I'm very much focused on, and doing the best that I can to continue the conversation. So I thank you for having me, and I just look forward to being a part of your platform in any way that I can.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate. There's so much that you shared that I'm pretty sure any families that are watching are going to get so much value from this conversation. And I really hope that um, if something resonated with you, for anyone who's watching, share this. And if you're not following JuVan yet, do yourself a favor and go follow him on his Instagram. Where can we find you online, JuVan?
Yeah, it's just my first and last name everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, at JuVan Langford, JuVan Langford.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, if this conversation was not super inspiring, I don't know. I don't know what will be, but this was, thank you so much, JuVan, for all your wisdom, for sharing all of these insights. And thank you. Yeah. Good luck with your book, and let us know when that comes out, and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny.
Thank you everyone for watching.